In 1912, French tailor Franz Reichelt climbed the Eiffel Tower wearing a homemade parachute coat and announced he would test it by jumping. Reporters gathered and, brimming with confidence, he leapt, the device failed, and he fell to his death. The image of a man testing an unproven life-saving idea in public became a tragic symbol of misplaced bravado. It's a stark reminder that experimental courage needs careful testing and safety margins before a fatal demonstration. Reichelt's death isn't just tragic, it's a lesson in engineering humility. When you test something that could kill you, small-scale trials, simulations, and controlled environments matter far more than bravado. He skipped gradual validation steps for a public spectacle, turning curiosity into catastrophe. This story warns inventors and thrill-seekers alike. Enthusiasm needs to be matched with rigorous safety testing and respect for risk before demonstrating dangerous ideas. Isadora Duncan, a celebrated dancer, died in 1927 when her long scarf trailed out of a convertible and became entangled in the car's rear wheel. She was strangled against the car. Her elegance and a fashion choice turned fatal in moments. This incident shows how a harmless habit can become lethal in the wrong context. It's an odd and chilling intersection of style and risk, reminding us that everyday choices sometimes hide hidden dangers. Duncan's passing isn't a moral judgment on style. It's an example of situational risk. Long flowing garments are expressive on stage but hazardous around machinery and vehicles. Her death led to practical conversations about clothing safety and the unpredictable ways fashion can interact with the environment. It's a sober lesson about adapting choices to surroundings. What's beautiful in one place can be dangerous in another, and common sense can save lives. Thomas Midgley Jr. was a brilliant but controversial inventor responsible for introducing leaded gasoline and CFCs. In 1944, debilitated by polio, he fashioned a mechanical system of ropes to lift himself. Tragically, he became entangled and died by strangulation. The irony is brutal. A man who created technologies with global harm died in an ordinary domestic accident involving his own contraption. It highlights how ingenuity without foresight can end in personal disaster. Midgley's life and death offer two lessons. Technology can have unintended global consequences, and personal fixes can be perilous without outside review. His inventions affected millions, but his fatal home solution shows how desperation can lead to dangerous improvisation. We should balance innovation with ethical responsibility and test safety into any assistive device. When personal health drives invention, independent assessment is essential to prevent fatal oversights. People attempting dramatic photos during storms have sometimes paid the ultimate price when lightning strikes. Chasing viral shots on ledges or in open fields during thunderstorms increases exposure and removes caution. The desire for a dramatic image can override basic safety rules, and when nature reacts in milliseconds, decisions that seemed thrilling can instantly turn fatal. This pattern repeats with many modern deaths tied to risky photo opportunities, showing how attention-seeking can be deadly. Smartphones make us bolder in dangerous situations because the camera feels like armor. Standing on wet sea walls, atop tall structures, or near electrified water to get the perfect frame removes distance from the real hazard. Risk assessment collapses under the weight of likes and shares. The sensible takeaway is straightforward. If the environment is dangerous, the picture isn't worth your life. Always prioritize escape routes and protective distance over a shareable moment. Across cultures, DIY fireworks and mishandled explosives have killed people attempting to impress friends or speed up displays. Improvised explosive devices, whether homemade mortars or rewired fireworks, are unstable and unpredictable. What begins as bravado or celebration quickly turns into catastrophic injury. The lessons are plain. Explosives are not toys. Regulations and professionals exist for a reason, and cutting corners to amplify spectacle risks permanent consequences. Accident investigations repeatedly show improvisation and alcohol as common contributors to fatal festival incidents. People underestimate the energy stored in pyrotechnics and overestimate their control. Even a small mistake in placement, fuse timing, or handling can cause lethal shrapnel or burns. The safe rule is to keep a distance, avoid homemade devices, and use licensed professionals for large displays. Respect and humility around those energetic devices save lives. Tourists who climb monuments for the perfect selfie sometimes misjudge height, footing, or structural stability and fall. The compulsion to capture a unique angle or a badge of daring can beat basic balance and risk awareness. Even when the fall isn't immediately fatal, injuries from broken bones or head trauma can be life-changing. Public spaces are meant to be enjoyed but not treated like stunt arenas. Obey signs and respect barriers to avoid turning a photo into tragedy. Barriers and warnings are placed for reasons beyond annoyance. They reflect engineering limits and safety protocols. When people ignore them, they trade a temporary thrill for a long-term cost. Monument falls often involve poor judgment compounded by overconfidence and sometimes alcohol or peer pressure. Cohesive public safety depends on adherence to rules. Small acts of restraint protect both individuals and the cultural sites themselves from avoidable harm. Each winter, people misjudge ice thickness and walk or drive onto unsafe frozen water, sometimes to rescue pets or show bravery. Ice strength is deceptive, varying with currents and temperature. What looked solid an hour ago may not hold. Hypothermia sets in quickly, and rescue attempts often create additional casualties. Common sense rules, checking local advisories, avoiding unknown thickness, and using long-range rescue tools are simple ways to avoid these preventable deaths. When someone falls through ice, the instinctive human response is to rush and grab them, but that often adds victims. Proper protocols call for reaching with a pole, throwing a rope, or lying flat to extend weight distribution. Knowing these simple rescue techniques and having basic tools available reduces the chance of multiple deaths. Preparedness and restraint, not heroics, are the safest strategies in ice emergencies. Despite repeated public campaigns, drunk driving continues to cause needless deaths. People who choose to drive after drinking often overestimate their control and underestimate how quickly judgment degrades. Fatal collisions can result from a moment's miscalculation, a missed brake, a delayed reaction, or an overcorrected swerve. The pattern is predictable and preventable, underscoring that planning safe transport after drinking is a simple choice that saves lives and avoids lifelong consequences. A single decision, to drive home rather than call a cab, can ripple outward into tragedy for multiple people. DUI laws and breathalyzer checkpoints exist because individual impulses can create public danger. The social lesson is simple: arrange safe rides, designate a sober driver, or use a rideshare app. The small inconvenience of planning is negligible compared to the irreversible costs of fatal collisions. People trying to fix household electrics without understanding circuits often underestimate how quickly high voltage can kill. Simple tasks like wiring a light or replacing a breaker can lead to electrocution if power is not properly shut off or if safety gauges are ignored. The desire to save money or prove competence isn't worth a fatal mistake. Qualified electricians exist because wiring mistakes are common and potentially deadly. Calling a professional is a pragmatic choice. Electrical safety is built on simple rules. Always cut power, use insulated tools, and know when to stop. Amateur attempts often skip tests and precautions, with contractors trained to spot hidden hazards like shared neutrals or old insulation. Even if you think it's a quick fix, a small error can be fatal. If you're unsure, the smart and safe step is to hire a licensed professional and avoid becoming an unnecessary statistic. People leaning past safety rails to get that perfect selfie are a modern hazard. The combination of distraction, uneven footing, and the illusion of control leads to falls from heights that would otherwise be avoided. Bystanders and friends sometimes egg each other on, increasing risk. The phenomenon is a modern example of how social validation via likes can push people into recklessness and sudden fatal outcomes, often in places designed for safe viewing. Many selfie accidents involve social dynamics. Someone dares another or promises a reward for a risky pose. The drive for novelty and social approval can outstrip caution, especially in groups. The simple countermeasure is awareness and mutual responsibility. Refuse to participate in dangerous stunts and call out risky behavior. When the social environment promotes safety rather than risk, many preventable deaths never happen. Falls down stairs kill and maim more often than people think, and many are entirely avoidable. Loose rugs, poor lighting, intoxication, or distracted walking with a phone can all combine to produce catastrophic injuries. Elderly people are especially vulnerable, while younger people often fall after risky behaviors. Preventive measures like proper lighting, handrails, and mindful movement make a huge difference, and common-sense housekeeping can save lives. Simple retrofits, secure rugs, handrails, even motion-censored lights, dramatically reduce stairfall risk. Teaching younger people to avoid running or carrying oversized loads downstairs also helps. When alcohol or medication is involved, the margin for error shrinks, so avoiding risky stair navigation is smart. Ultimately, many fatal falls are prevented by small investments in safety and a bit of mindfulness during daily movement. Pressurized cans or damaged containers can explode when opened, cutting or blinding someone in an instant. People often shake, puncture, or attempt to open compromised containers without realizing the pressure dynamics inside. Industrial cleaners, aerosol cans, and even fermenting homebrew can harbor internal pressures that become dangerous when released suddenly. Knowing how to safely vent and handle such items and wearing basic eye protection can prevent needless injuries and deaths. Home fermentation projects like brewing or pickling are popular, but they can produce explosive pressure if sealed improperly. People sometimes store such jars in warm places or neglect to use pressure relief caps, and when the lid blows, shrapnel and mess ensue. Simple vigilance, using proper equipment and following recipes, prevents these explosions. Treat homemade chemical or fermenting projects with the same respect you'd give lab work to avoid accidents. Rooftop gatherings can turn deadly when people lean on low parapets, climb onto ledges, or sit on railings for photos. Alcohol and crowding make missteps more likely, and a single slip can become fatal from significant heights. Buildings sometimes lack adequate safety features for impromptu activities, and hosts may not enforce sensible boundaries. Being aware of edges, limiting alcohol, and keeping guests away from unsafe perimeters can prevent tragic falls. Good venue design anticipates human behavior and installs robust guardrails, clear boundaries, and non-climbable surfaces. Hosts should create safe photo spots away from edges, supervise alcohol consumption, and communicate rules. Personal responsibility matters. Don't attempt stunts or climb barriers for a laugh. Collective safety reduces the chance that a fun night ends in heartbreak, and small investments in infrastructure can save lives while preserving the party vibe. Using gasoline to light or revive fires is a leading cause of severe burns and deaths. The liquid can flow back toward the container or vaporize and flash over unexpectedly, producing explosive flames. People often improvise without understanding fuel behavior, turning a small cooking fire into a lethal inferno. The straightforward guideline is to never use flammable liquids to start or accelerate fires. Safer alternatives like proper kindling and firelighters exist for a reason. Most fire-related fatalities are preventable and stem from ignorance or shortcuts. Educating people about safe ignition practices and proper fuel handling reduces horrific injuries. Simple common-sense changes, like keeping flammables away from flames and using manufactured starters, prevent a disproportionate number of tragedies. The takeaway is that respecting fire's unpredictability and using design tools are cheap strategies to avoid catastrophic outcomes. Interacting with wild animals for photos or entertainment can end badly when people ignore handlers or underestimate the animal. A sudden bite, a constriction, or a kick from a startled creature can cause injury or death. Even trained animals are unpredictable outside controlled routines, so trying to hug, hold, or pose with them without supervision invites trouble. Respect for animal behavior and following professional guidance is the safest route to enjoy wildlife encounters. Educational encounters that emphasize trained handlers, gloves, and clear rules make wildlife interactions safe and enriching. Problems arise when people bypass rules for an Instagram moment or to show off bravery. The combination of animal instincts and human unpredictability is a recipe for disaster. When in doubt, keep distance and prioritize expert guidance rather than attempting personal contact with unfamiliar animals. Trespassing into restricted areas, abandoned buildings, rail yards, or closed parks often leads to deadly encounters. People underestimate hazards like unstable structures, hidden drops, or active machinery. The thrill of trespass or the desire to bypass fees isn't worth risking severe injury or arrest. These scenes frequently end in rescue operations or fatalities, illustrating that boundaries are often established because the space is genuinely dangerous. Properties labeled off-limits often include unseen hazards like weak floors, exposed wiring, or contaminated materials. Emergency response in remote trespass locations also becomes slower, increasing mortality risk. For urban explorers, safety measures, permits, and awareness are essential. For most people, the safest choice is to admire from afar. Avoiding restricted sites prevents nuisance and genuine danger in equal measure. Using the wrong tool for a heavy mechanical job has ended lives in construction and home repair. Crowbars, damaged supports, or improvisations can dislodge heavy objects that crush operators. Proper rigging, secured loads, and trained teamwork prevent these incidents. Cutting corners to save time or money is a common driver of fatal mistakes, and on sites full of potential energy, respect for correct procedures and equipment is non-negotiable. Construction fatalities decline when companies enforce rigging standards, PPE, and supervisory oversight. Workers should refuse unsafe tasks and report hazards without fear of reprisal. Education about load calculations and secure anchoring prevents tragedies. When teams adopt safety-first cultures, the most dangerous jobs become manageable. Investing in training and equipment protects both individual workers and the broader community. Overcrowded boats and passengers leaning over edges for views or photos create capsizing and drowning risks. People often ignore life jacket rules to feel more natural in photos, or because they believe they can swim. Sudden shifts in weight or waves can flip small vessels, and cold water can incapacitate swimmers fast. Respecting capacity limits and wearing life jackets keeps recreational outings safe rather than turning them into tragedies. Boat operators and passengers share responsibility for safety. Avoid overcrowding, secure gear, and insist on life jackets. Weather can change rapidly, and cold shock often incapacitates even strong swimmers. Simple, non-negotiable rules dramatically reduce fatalities. Enjoying waterways is wonderful, but humility about water and preparation for emergencies is essential to prevent needless drownings. Stunt driving, especially in older vehicles without safety cages or harnesses, frequently ends in catastrophic crashes. Historical records show people performing improvised ramp jumps or speed stunts without roll bars or helmets. Splitting the line between daring and disastrous is easy when a suspension or steering failure happens mid-stunt. Professional stunts require millions in safety prep. Amateur attempts at thrill-seeking on public grounds elevate the chance of fatal outcomes drastically. The difference between a choreographed stunt and a deadly act often comes down to engineering and practice. Professionals rehearse, build redundancies, and have emergency teams on standby. Imitators lack that infrastructure and are gambling with lives. The sane takeaway: if you crave thrills, seek controlled environments and expert supervision rather than unsafe public experiments that too often end in lasting harm. People sheltering under trees during storms sometimes get struck by falling branches or entire trees. It seems natural to seek cover beneath foliage, but high winds and saturated soil can destabilize even sturdy trunks. The instinct to avoid rain can unfortunately put someone under the very thing that collapses. Knowing safe shelters, like solid buildings or low-lying areas clear of trees, reduces the chance of being hit by falling limbs. Tree failures in storms are caused by root rot, saturated soil, or unseen decay. They're not predictable by casual inspection. Avoiding high winds and moving to sturdy shelter is the prudent choice. Post-storm hazards also include damaged trees that look stable but can fail unexpectedly. When you see leaning trees or cracked limbs, keep a safe distance and let professionals handle removal. Welding without proper PPE and ventilation can cause severe burns, eye damage, and fires. Home improvisers sometimes skip masks or use inadequate gear to save money, underestimating ultraviolet flash and stray sparks. Nearby solvents or cloth can ignite, and inhaling fumes is hazardous. Proper personal protective equipment, fire watches, and clear workspaces prevent mishaps. Small investments in safety equipment protect the greatest resource: human life. Welding safety is largely about basic preparation: the right helmet, gloves, and a ready extinguisher. Proper ventilation prevents inhalation injuries, and a fire watch can tackle stray sparks before they ignite. These precautions are simple and inexpensive compared to the human and financial cost of an injury. Treating trades seriously and learning correct procedures dramatically reduces preventable accidents. Homemade bottle rockets, while fun, can misfire and shatter glass or injure bystanders when launched recklessly. Small backyard experiments can produce dangerous shrapnel or unpredictable trajectories. Supervision, safe launch zones, and protective eyewear transform playful learning into a safe activity. The lesson is to direct childhood curiosity into structured, supervised projects that teach physics without introducing unnecessary hazards. When science projects are overseen by informed adults and safety protocols are used, they become inspiring rather than dangerous. Marking off clear zones and ensuring spectators are at safe distances eliminates most injury risk. This structured approach fosters learning while minimizing harm, proving that curiosity and safety are not mutually exclusive but complementary. Tampering with safety systems like airbags or seatbelts to customize a vehicle can cause them to fail in a crash or deploy unexpectedly. Some amateur modifiers disable systems to accommodate accessories, unaware that they've turned protective devices into hazards. Professional mechanics follow manufacturer protocols. Amateur tweaks bypass critical sensors. Respecting factory safety engineering and relying on certified shops avoids transforming life-saving systems into deadly surprises. Modern vehicles are complex systems designed to work as integrated safety packages. Qualified technicians have the training and diagnostic equipment to modify or repair these systems without compromising them. Avoiding DIY shortcuts and consulting professionals for vehicle alterations preserves the safeguards engineered to protect occupants. This caution literally keeps people alive in collisions. Bathrooms are deceptively dangerous environments where slips, drownings, and scalds happen more than people expect. Candles near tubs, slippery tiles, or unattended hot water can escalate quickly into life-threatening situations. The combination of impaired mobility, hot surfaces, and water creates multiple failure points that can combine fatally. Installing grab bars, using non-slip mats, and eliminating open flames around baths are simple, effective precautions. A few inexpensive adjustments dramatically reduce bathroom fatalities. Thermostatic controls prevent scalding, grab rails help prevent falls, and supervision for vulnerable individuals reduces drowning risk. Many tragic incidents are preventable with modest investment and foresight. Bathrooms are private spaces, but that privacy should not exclude safety-minded design and practical measures that protect occupants. Improvised protective gear often fails when exposed to the forces it claims to resist. People trying to create makeshift armor or helmets for experiments or stunts risk penetration injuries or blunt trauma, believing materials like metal plates or scrap will protect them. Certified armor is tested under strict protocols. DIY versions are unpredictable. The safe rule is not to test life-critical protection on oneself without proper materials and expert oversight. Professional protective equipment undergoes rigorous testing to ensure predictable performance. Attempting to substitute improvised materials creates a false sense of security and can worsen injuries. Whenever personal safety is at stake, rely on accredited products and experts rather than homemade solutions that have not been validated under realistic conditions. Steam systems and pressurized boilers can kill in seconds if valves are opened incorrectly or maintenance is skipped. Homeowners or workers who bypass safety procedures risk scalding, explosions, or structural damage. These systems require trained technicians and routine checks to keep pressure and relief systems functioning. Respecting maintenance schedules and professional inspections prevents tragic mechanical failures. Routine safety inspections and adherence to manufacturer maintenance schedules are non-negotiable for pressurized systems. A timely replacement of worn parts and testing of relief valves prevents catastrophic failures. Investing in regular professional maintenance is an inexpensive way to avoid devastating accidents that often come from deferred upkeep. Heavy agricultural equipment with exposed belts and blades can trap clothing and limbs in a heartbeat. Farmers sometimes perform quick adjustments while machines are running, and then, in a moment, are pulled into dangerous mechanisms. Lockout-tagout procedures and machine guards exist because they reduce identical tragedies year after year. A moment's impatience can result in amputation or death, so following safety protocols is essential on farms. Machine guards, emergency stop systems, and powering down before adjustments are basic but life-saving practices in agriculture. Training everyone on a farm to respect these rules reduces accidents that too often involve family members or neighbors. Safety isn't optional in environments with immense mechanical energy. It's the difference between returning home and a life that ends in a split second. Pranks that involve pushing someone into water have had fatal outcomes when the person can't swim, is intoxicated, or hits their head. What starts as a laugh can end with drowning, brain injury, or severe trauma. Parties should respect attendees' limits and avoid stunts aimed at humiliation or surprise near hazardous elements like pools. Prioritizing consent and safety prevents tragic consequences from ill-advised jokes. Good hosts establish clear rules around water, especially when alcohol is present. Lifeguards or sober supervisors, accessible life rings, and guest consent for any pranks reduce risk. Social norms that prioritize safety make parties fun without danger. Treating guests with respect and forethought prevents impulsive stunts from turning into tragedies. Foraging for wild mushrooms can be delicious or deadly. Mistaken identity is common and often lethal. Edible species can have toxic lookalikes that cause organ failure within days. Amateur pickers sometimes rely on hearsay or myths rather than expert identification, and once ingested, few home remedies exist. The safest path is to forage with certified experts or avoid risky species entirely to prevent tragic poisonings. Field guides and expert guidance reduce risk but don't eliminate it. Many edible varieties only become safe after special preparation. When in doubt, throw it out. Never taste test an unfamiliar mushroom. Foraging culture benefits from humility and caution, because a simple mistake in identification can be permanent. Commuters taking shortcuts through tight spaces or attempting risky maneuvers to save time sometimes suffer fatal head injuries when collisions occur. Helmets reduce fatality risk, but don't eliminate it when forces are extreme. Rushing, overconfidence, or ignoring basic traffic rules increases the chance of a fatal incident in an instant. The practical lesson is to slow down and choose safe routes rather than gambling with one's skull. Infrastructure and personal gear combine to prevent collisions. Bike lanes, reflective clothing, helmets, and obeying traffic laws are essential. Time saved by risky shortcuts isn't worth the potential permanent harm. Urban planning that separates bikes and vehicles also reduces fatal incidents, making cities safer for everyone. Simple choices: wear a helmet, remain visible, and follow the rules, protect lives. After walking through these cases, patterns emerge. Overconfidence, shortcuts, social pressure, and ignorance repeat across time and cultures. Many fatal outcomes aren't the result of malevolent forces, but of everyday decisions made without foresight. Recognizing these patterns helps us apply inexpensive fixes: restraint, training, adherence to safety protocols, and respect for expert systems, which dramatically reduce avoidable deaths. The moral is that many tragedies are preventable with a little humility. The single rule that ties these stories together is simple: stop and think. Pause before a risky photo, before a daring stunt, before improvising with dangerous tools. That short delay allows for perspective, consultation, or choice of a safer alternative. It's not an inspirational slogan. It's a practical survival strategy that would have spared many lives in the cases we explored and can help prevent future tragedies. We've reviewed 30 categories of absurd and avoidable deaths, each a reminder that human error and poor judgment often underlie tragedy. The practical lessons are repeated. Plan, respect professional standards, avoid shortcuts, and value life over spectacle. If you carry one lesson from this countdown, let it be that attention and humility are powerful lifesavers. Subscribe for more stories that blend curiosity with caution.